record. Hey everyone, good to see you. Thank you for your flexibility yesterday. It sounds like it worked out well for Laura. I'm going to have us start out with wins. Anybody have wins they would like to share?
I'll let the other
Okay,
guys
go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
I have a couple, but I won't share them all. So, it's been such a great week, and I was thinking, which one should I share? And so that's a good week when you have to ask yourself that. I have received a surprise inheritance, something I wasn't expecting, from the passing of my grandfather, who died about 2.5 years ago. And so it was all held up in probate and everything, and I didn't know anything about it. And so this week, surprise, it came in the mail. So that was wonderful. That is
Thank you, Granddad.
Yeah, that is a win. He was amazing. So
I love it. Joni, do you have a win?
I do. It's going to be redundant. Actually, you weren't on the very beginning. I'm still feeling so high from Sunday. I spent my nephew's baby. He had his blessing. People might know it as a christening. And so literally my siblings were there, nieces, nephews, in-laws from the nieces and nephews, and it was just such a beautiful family day. And I just felt so grateful that I could be with my entire family, and also that I have such a close relationship with my family, including my nieces and nephews, and I'm just still really flying high from that. So
congratulations, that's huge.
Thank you.
That's great. Hey, Kathy, welcome.
Hi,
you look gorgeous.
how are you?
We're doing great. Do you have any wins you want to share?
Let's see. Oh, I went up to San Francisco and was with my grandchildren over the weekend.
Oh, the beautiful pictures. Yeah.
That was really fun. We went hiking in John Muir Woods, and they were just delightful. It was terrific.
That's so great.
Really, yes. So that was a real win.
That's awesome. That's great. I know Laura's in listen mode. Laura, thank you for your flexibility on this. Listen, ladies, I am so excited about this lesson 3, a worthy destination. This lesson, I mean, I know, right? They're all my favorites, but okay, fine. But truly, the more that I study this, and that's my intention for you all, the more I study this, the more my awareness is raised, the deeper it goes, in a really good way. And it's like all the puzzle pieces coming together in a really beautiful way. And this lesson, I mean, the first lesson was amazing on attitude, right? Gotta have it. The second lesson on greener pastures, where are the opportunities that you already have, the diamonds in the rough in your own backyard? And I'll share a story with you about that. But let's put a pin in that. But this lesson, to me, really takes us into the subject of goal setting and goal achieving in a really, really beautiful way. And the big hinge, they say big doors swing on little hinges. The big deal here is you guys are in an advanced state of awareness. You've been studying this material in one shape or form or another, right? Lisa's done Science of Getting Rich. Kathy did SGR, TIR, reading things, being exposed to different ideas and concepts. But this is literally a blueprint of how to live in a co-creative state 24/7. And that is my intention, is for you to take everything you've learned on a conceptual level and really start to step out and make it happen. And we do that by internalizing these concepts and by internalizing our big C-type goal onto the screen of our mind, onto what the Greeks called our heart, not our pump in our chest, but our heart of hearts, as Bob used to call it. That our C-type goal has to be something that we are so in love with, so passionate about. And we have to practice that, because the paradigm is the one thing that talks us out of it day in and day out. So when we have that dream in our heart, and we start to live in this way of constantly being in goal creation, nothing that comes to you, I don't want to do a double negative, anything that comes to you, you don't sit there and wonder if it's going to happen. You ask yourself those two questions that Bob asks us in lesson 1 in Thinking into Results, and in this lesson 3, am I willing and am I able? And everything that we know is that if it comes to us, it's for us. And if there's people doing all kinds of crazy things, without limbs and creating technology, we certainly are able to do anything that is really a dream in our heart. The big question is, are we willing? Are we willing to do what it's going to take to achieve that goal? And the answer to that question, people say, well, do I have to work harder? Do I have to hustle more, grind more? And to answer that, I would say no. Now, inspired action is going to be required, unless you're so good at manifesting that you can sit on a sofa and just call it in. I believe there are people out there who can do that. My level of belief is not quite there yet, but I'm working on it and holding out, the possibility that could happen. Like Lisa, check showed up in the mail. Didn't see that coming, right?
Right.
Couldn't have engineered that. We got that check from Dan's, second cousin, literally on the day that we had to write almost an exact check to the IRS for that amount. So I do believe that when we ask, it is given, and the universe lines up every cooperative component, and we just need to get ourselves to be that last cooperative component. And what we're being taught in this lesson is so important to internalize and to start being this material, not just conceptually, but like internalizing it, right? Is this all making sense to you? Yeah. Kathy, do you have a question?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
It's kind of interesting because we haven't talked with you. When was the last time we talked with you?
I think it was last week. I know it seems like a long time.
It seems
and
like
it's time for us all to have a one-on-one call, because I really want to touch base and make sure you're on track. I know you're on track, but just touch base. So we'll talk about that either at the end of today's call or tomorrow. I'll put my calendar together. I will be in Hawaii next week, but my phone works there. So
good.
Yay. That's my win.
But I find that when there's a big gap between talking about this and being in it with people, and then so much other comes into your life, kind of, you have to work really hard to stay in this mindset, because there's so many things that come and bombard you, right?
Yeah. I mean, the television. So let me just say to you, absolutely. And we'll talk about this. Okay. It's interesting. If you think about what the television was first introduced, it was introduced, and very quickly, if it wasn't for that express purpose, it became a vehicle to sell you things. Look what you can hold in the palm of your hand. A vehicle that can sell you concepts, ideas. It tracks your data. You are a product of this machine.
I know. And
your laptop. I mean, it doesn't really matter. So, so you're getting the picture here. The point is, we are more than ever, and Earl talked about this, that we're constantly bombarded by things coming in through our senses.
Absolutely.
Our senses are like 6-lane highways, right? So if focusing was ever hard for us as human beings previously, it is multiples more difficult because there's so much streaming into us. And it's so
Yeah.
fascinating. Trust me when I say, I know. And so here's what I'm going to say about this. And this will be a through line throughout the course. Progress, not perfection, and a little bit, a lot. It's like gardening. And I love that Earl and Bob talk about this, like planting the seed in the treasury of your subconscious mind, right? We have got to constantly reinforce it through constant spaced repetition. I
Yeah.
listen ad nauseum to this material, not because my conscious mind loves it. It's like, yeah. But I know this. It's not for my conscious mind. It's for my subconscious programming. And every time I read this or listen to it, I ask myself, how can this help me achieve my C-type goal? Bob always said, study with a purpose, right? Study with a purpose, study with a goal of enhancing and advancing your goal.
Right.
We are taught in education to study to remember. But what he talks about in this lesson, as well as in lesson 2, is the knowing doing gap. I'm here to assure each of you and myself that any dream you hold in your heart and you are serious about, you already have the capacity to do it. Or in today's technology, listen, beekeeping, there's probably 8 million hours worth of beekeeping videos on YouTube, Lisa. If you
Yes,
don't know it,
I've seen about half of them.
well, right. And here's my point. We don't have to, back in the dinosaur days, I used to have to go to a library, to the Dewey Decimal System, and find a Encyclopedia Britannica. I mean, even then, the way to do it was probably already here. But quite literally, anything you want to know how to do, somebody else is already doing it. And even if they aren't, you can use your mind that's hooked up to infinite source and download how to do it. Because the way to do whatever it is you want to do is already here. Bob has said this so much. And you listen to that and I can regurgitate that. But boy, don't I know it today in a very different way. So, Kathy, to your point, we have to, and Joni, I see you have your hand raised. We have got to make a committed decision, first and foremost, that this material and thinking is going to be our number one priority in life. Like wild animals cannot drag you away from this, because we all feel the effect of not doing our work.
It's like you should listen to something every day.
Absolutely. And I would take it a step further and say, make it a strategy. I'm going to use, because I'm in this program, I'm not saying do this all day, every day, but make it a point to consistently, because there's so much personal development stuff out there and our mind craves novelty. So you're like, I don't want to listen to Earl and Bob anymore. I'm going to listen to something else. Now, I'm not saying don't do that. I do listen when I'm studying and teaching. I am in the material like a scientist, because going deep and changing your paradigm, I mean, I am convinced more than ever, changing your paradigms is the number one thing you have to commit to in life.
Right. It is.
Observing and changing your paradigms.
Yeah.
And then using your mind in harmony with the universal laws, understanding the universal laws. We talk about the law of attraction in this lesson. It's based on the law of vibration. You can study a lot of law of attraction stuff out there and it's all good. But if you don't understand that your thoughts set up a vibratory pattern in your body and in your cells, literally, and I have an image I want to share with you a little bit later as we get into this, but you are literally sloughing off cells with little tiny images in it, vibrational packages, so to speak, like levels of vibration, to the point that Kirlian photography can read the energy coming off your body. Bob explains it, right? Yeah. Bob's, and they have pictures of water crystals that have been around different types of music, negative music, low vibration music, or thing, or plants that you say, I hate you to, and the plant literally dies. Is that because the plant speaks English or Russian or Portuguese? No, it's because the plant feels the vibration. So what we're learning here is very deep. And Kathy, the big deal is this in my mind, more and more than ever. Pay attention to who you're talking to and what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And pay it right, your environment, Jim Rohn, some of the 5 people. And number 2, study this every single day with an intention to continue raising your awareness and living more in alignment with the universal laws of who you
Mm-hmm.
really are and what you're really capable of. Those are the 2 big things that we don't understand when we're never taught. I think we come in completely aware of it. I mean, Joni's little nephew, he's still connected up,
You bet.
right? But pretty soon, hey, stop fantasizing. Hey, stop daydreaming. Hey, how are you going to do that? Hey, you're not good for math, making money, relationships, health, all that. Mhm. And if we don't literally set a strong intention to live from the inside out, you will be the plaything of other forces in our lives because they're all too happy to suck up our energy. Remember the Matrix, right? This is literally unplugging from that. And anything that you think about, talk about, get emotionally involved in is taking your vital life force and giving it shape and form. It is not an innocent thing. Now, I'm going to say up until you started studying this, it was relatively innocent because you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
You've all taken the red pill. Sorry. There's no going back, right? A mind once expand, the chicken can't go back in the egg. So now it's on you. And I see this not as some heavy, oh my gosh, I have to monitor every thought. That's not the point. It's about the trend. Are you trending feeling better? Are you trending being more optimistic? Are you trending thinking positively about your goals, looking for opportunities, using your imagination, right? Hook thinking. I want you all to literally, if you need to, and I think we all do, set an alarm on your phone, put it into your calendar every day, not only your study, because studying the material is one thing, but implementing it into your life, integrating it, as Earl and Bob say, into your behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the absence, it's like the boat the boat that's going into a port, the ship, the captain can't see the port for miles and miles and miles, but he knows which port he's going to, and he just goes as far as he can see, and he makes the next port of entry his next port. So we'll talk about that, breaking your goals down into bite-sized chunks as well. So thank you, Joni, for being patient.
Not at all. Everything you pretty much answered a lot of what I was going to ask or comment on.
Okay.
So one thing tactical, if you remember, you started off by saying progress, not perfection, and then you mentioned something about a garden. And I was trying to write as fast as I could, but
Yes.
I didn't get that part about the garden. So that's one.
Oh, sure. So has anybody ever planted anything?
Yeah.
I think we talked about this last week, right?
Yeah.
So the deal with gardening is this, and I learned this, I'll just give you a little story. So when I split up with my ex-husband, I rented a house, a little tiny house, so cute, in downtown Wellesley. And then I bought a house for the girls and myself, and it was darling. It was right in town, walkable on this brook path, just so beautiful. And a friend of mine was a landscape architect, and she's from Europe. She's Irish. And we turned that little plot of land into the most magnificent garden you have ever seen. And that fed my soul in ways I cannot even begin to tell you, because after a scorched earth New England winter, to see things coming up was so metaphorical and healing for me, because I felt that inside, ending a almost 20-year marriage with 3 little girls and lots of other stuff going on. So anyway, however, we really planted that sucker up. And what I learned was that you had to stay on top of that, and you had to pull those weeds a lot. Kathy knows this. She's put in a beautiful garden, like either you or someone else. But in this case, it's us. doing the planting and the weeding. And so what's so important is, in addition to building a new paradigm, right? Because Buckminster Fuller said, don't fight with the existing one, build a new paradigm that makes that old one obsolete, right? That's when Bob called Sandy and said, what are you doing? I'm working on my paradigm. Why the hell would you do that? You know, because fighting in the mud with that sucker, I'm going to tell you something. It's going to win. It is deeply ingrained in you on a cellular level. So this is why it is so important to build a new image. And your C-type goal is that new image. It's that new version of yourself. And we'll talk about paradigms as we get into this discussion today. But it's so important to build an image of what you want. Why? Because we think in images. That's why the stick person, you can use that baby to make it whatever you want in your life, because it shows us how the mind works. We have to shut off those sensory senses to the extent that it's driving our thinking, feeling, behaving. And we start by generating an idea. We start by generating an image with our imagination. And then we use our will to hold it on the screen of our mind. So Joni, back to the gardening metaphor. Build this new image and get emotionally involved in it. That's planting it in the garden of your subconscious mind. And the weeds will die for lack of attention, for lack of focus, for lack of nourishment. If you're talking about your problems, as we often do, or even thinking about them, let's just say you're just getting emotionally involved in the problem. We talked about that last week. We have to say, wait a minute, there's a solution here, and work our way around to the other side of the problem. So the gardening metaphor goes a little bit further, which is you have to do a little bit, a lot. If you wait to pull the weeds for 6 months, 3 months, you're going to be pulling a lot of weeds. The paradigm will be that much stronger.
Okay.
So what we're doing on a metacognition level is we're building a new image of our life, because we can do that. We have the power to do that. Our dogs do not, as far as we can tell, right? We have this magnificent ability to tap into spirit, right? We live on 3 levels. That's in lesson 1. We live on a spiritual plane, first and foremost. We live on an intellectual plane. That's our higher faculties, right? Imagination, intuition, reason, will, perception. Did I say memory? Intuition. If you're not thinking from the inside out, starting with the end in mind, using those factors to navigate through this, then we're largely reacting to the circumstances that have already been created by the paradigms inside of us, right? See the circularity here? Joni, is your hand still up?
No, sorry, I didn't.
No, that's fine.
I did have one more thing that maybe now is not the right time to talk about it, but it was a continuation of Kathy's question.
Yeah.
And you know, you did answer it when you were talking, when you said it's about environment, and you are the 5th person of the 4 you hang out with, and things like
Right.
that. I think Kathy and I are in a separate group, and I think Kathy, because you also are coaching people who might not be on that same level, who likely are not on that same level because you're coaching them. So I guess my question was more advice about how you can maintain that high level of vibration while you are either participating in a serving way, helping others.
Yeah. No, good.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And, that's a good question for anybody in the healing or coaching business. How do you walk among them, but not be, I think there's a quote in the Bible around that,
Yeah.
And so here's what, everything we've learned to date, we understand that paradigms and the mind, the way the mind works in paradigms, you never have to wonder why people are behaving the way they are. Bob used to say he would look at people and literally see a line through the middle of their head. He said, I don't know what to say. It's just my habit now. And he could also read their energy, but he always kept in the forefront of his mind, They behave the way they do, and they're getting the results that they get because of the way they're programmed, because of their paradigms. And so, so often as helpers, we really want to help people. And believe me, that flips into the enabling business. And the truth is, we need to mind our garden first and foremost. And then if we are helping people and giving them advice, know this, that you can lead a horse, to the proverbial paradigm watering hole. But in the end, that person has to be as invested in themselves and their own paradigm change as you are in helping them. So does that answer the question? And then all roads lead back to, the more you are in charge of you, which is a habit, which is an intellectual habit, the less you will be affected by other people's thoughts, feelings, behavior, family, friends, clients, etc. It's like, you know what? The thing I need to do is be in alignment with me, ask how I can serve from that alignment, and set the intention. That's what I do now in my coaching, is I'm here to serve at the highest level. But the single most thing I can do is be in alignment with who I am and what I'm about on a thought, feeling, and behavior basis. Is that helpful?
Very, thank you.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's about repetition.
It is.
Sorry, it's not more sexy than that, but yeah.
Peggy, I thought what
Yeah.
was so helpful once you told me, that's all great, but sometimes we get triggered. I mean, something will
course.
come.
Of
And
course.
what you said, how to get over a trigger. And I mean, even if we prepare and listen and do all that, and
Sure.
then something comes in,
Yeah.
I think that's so helpful, what you said
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. And I really want to thank Phil Goldfine for this. You can ask yourself one simple question: what do I want? What do I want here? To bring yourself back to center. I want to serve at the highest level. I want to stay in alignment with who I am, first and foremost. I want to be cognizant and aware that, some people are ready and some people aren't, and it's not my business to fix anybody. My business is to handle myself. End of story. And be a vibrational invitation to other people, and in the end, for me, it comes down to, what would love do? What would God do? What would love, how would God see these people? How would love see these people? And that they're fighting their own deal. And it's never personal. That little book, The Four Agreements, one of those agreements is, don't take anything personally. If you can master that, you live in alignment with who you are, your own ethical and moral standards, keep your word. That's one of the other four agreements. You handle you, and it's amazing how other things, So yeah, it's a great question though. So we're gonna, if there's no more questions on that, we're gonna dive into this, and we're gonna talk about this more tomorrow as well. And then, like I said, I would like to get with all of you. I'll set up my schedule for next week. And or potentially over the weekend. Monday would also be good, before I leave. But what we're talking here is a worthy destination. And I made some notes, and we will go back to the material. But, if you want to think about success, here's how I invite us to think about it. Success is a mindset. Success is a way of being. Success is a I can and I will do attitude. Success is an I'm bigger than any of my fears or paradigms attitude. And success is a focused mind. And what, Earl calls this is, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And I want you to consider this. You may have, as I, been taught that success is a brass ring of some, shape or form, a home, a marriage, money, running a thriving business. But if you say to yourself, great, those are all things that I desire, right? Those are all things that I want and should be able to have. I'm here for it. You know me. That's Joni. She knows my shoe collection, and my handbag selection, and a lot of other things. I'm here for the finery of life. That happens to ring my bell. Once, was what once was a luxury, as Joni has said, is now a necessity. Does that mean I can't be happy without it? No. But the point is, life is here to enjoy. But the biggest definition of success, the biggest shift in our understanding of success, is that it is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Meaning, you're not unsuccessful if you don't get to that goal. You're only unsuccessful if you quit. Bob used to say, failure doesn't make you a failure, quitting makes you a failure. And the beautiful thing is, here you are, a goal-seeking organism, most happy, I believe, when you are in growth mode, right? When you're growing, when you're challenging yourself, when you're pushing, I think there's a saying in corporate, fail fast, and in entrepreneurial circles, break it, push it until it breaks, and then rebuild it. That's how the world has been made better. That's how we're living in places with heat and lighting and airplanes, with Wi-Fi. Like, somebody was willing to take a fantasy and say, this I will do. Sarah Blakely, thank you, we have Spanx. She had the idea. Joni's a poster woman for it. She had the idea, but then she did it. She was so excited about it. Was she scared? Of course she was. I think she leveraged everything she had. And there was no certainty that it was going to work, except in her mind. She saw it working. She was certain on a cognitive level that she was not going to quit until it worked. And that's the kind of attitude you got to have. And I'm talking to myself. You got to be that willing to look crazy, to be perceived as unconventional, as far out there, however you think about it. You have to be willing to hold fast to what's inside versus what's outside. And you have to be willing to withstand other people's negative beliefs, like you said, Kathy, disbelief in you, criticism, whatever you think about Elon Musk, his great mentors who completely supported him at one point stopped. And he had a 60-minute interview that it brought him to tears, because it'd be like Bob saying to me, you're never going to succeed at this. But he loved the ideas that he was involved with so much that he did not stop. And that's available to all of us. But it takes that constant spaced repetition, right? Because I don't think the big C-type goals that we have, we wake up one day and we're like, we are 100% in. Maybe you are. And if you are, rock on. That's great. But it takes that constant spaced repetition to overcome the disbelief that we have in our subconscious programs, in our paradigms. Right? Because if I said Lisa or Kathy or Laura or Joni, carte blanche, open check, carte blanche, all the time, all the money, all the capability, every resource you need. That's not a bad way to start it with yourself. If anything was possible, literally, money was not an issue, time was not an issue, expertise was not an issue. If anything was possible, what would I love? To be, because you have to first be it, to do, and to have. And it works in that order. You can't have something until you can do it, and you can't do it until you can embody it, right? So then you have to work backwards and say, well, if that's really true, if we take that thought exercise a little bit further and we say, you know what, anything is possible, then what is between you and this? That dream, that goal, your paradigm.
Conscious mind.
All roads lead back to the paradigm
Mhm.
that you didn't even pick. You're wearing a paradigm, you're wearing a suit of self-image, of belief, of productivity, of ideas about money, ideas about relationships, ideas about what you're capable of that you have quite simply inherited and then reinforced throughout the years. Aren't we lucky we know this? Because the mechanism works regardless of what the program is. And so people who are successful, who live in this way, and that's what I invite you to contemplate and to think about, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow. And I've seen people live this way, and I'm moving more and more into that way of being. If I think it, I want it, I'm going to have it. It's happening. I don't know how, but I don't sit in that first part of the what for very long anymore, getting wound up in the how. It's the what and the why. And then it's off to the races. Right? So this
Say that again,
becomes,
Becky. Say that again. When I
so
think of something. Mhm.
when I think of something that I
Yeah.
want, I have trained myself, and it's a lifelong training, right? I'm not
Mhm.
saying I'm here. I'm a little bit further down the path. When I think of something I want now, I am training myself to say, wait a minute. And then immediately the how comes into play. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, what if you tried that? All of that. I am training myself now to say, I want it, I get it. The end. Here's why I want it. I want this. Here's what it looks like. I get emotionally involved in it. What does it really look like? What color would I like it to look like? How many clients would I like to serve? How would I like to serve them?
Mhm.
The what and the why. The how isn't about how am I going to do it? The how is what does my life look like now that this is happening? Because the fact is, it's happening. The quantum physics people would tell you it's already done on some level, some alternative plane of existence. I mean, however you want to think about it, but think about it, right? Now, if you train yourself to live that way, and that's why, when I'm in a mastermind of people who that's how Bob lived. He didn't do a lot of hand wringing and teeth gnashing about ideas. He was either, is it, do I want it? Am I willing to do what is necessary? Do I want it? And am I willing? That's it. It wasn't like, am I able? It was like, do I want it? And am I willing? And he was just like, yeah. And then he went about building the image, getting emotionally involved, taking inspired action, building the image more, meditating on it, seeing it, feeling it, tasting it internally. And then guess what happened? It started to show up on the outside, just like a carrot that you plant in your garden. Little seed starts to sprout, and you're like, hey, look at that, would you? Lisa calls me and says, hey, I'm manifesting stuff. Yeah, you are. You're manifesting the stuff you want. You're co-creating the life you want. Okay. So this is the place that I'm telling you, ladies, my vision of this is at the end of this program, you're like, I'm living this way. I might have a little bit of the Harry Potter wand, but that's all good, right?
Why
That's
do we
just
have to wait
more.
until the end of the program?
Well, you decide. Good question. You could decide it tonight. I'm in. I'm in. I'm going to do whatever it's going to take. Okay. So I want you to think about success because I was trained to think the success, if I want this pen, the success comes when it finally comes to me. No, 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 no. That's not what we're talking about here. And by the way, this will come when you follow this process. That's
Mhm.
the beautiful thing. You never have to, oh, I just got chills. You never have to wonder if this is going to show up. I feel Bob's energy so strongly these days. He never wondered if this was going to show up. It was always just, when is it going to show up? How is it going to, like, that's the fun part. And the way you compress that when it shows up is doing the work, being a vibrational match to it, being in harmony with it. Don't pump the brakes with your worry, fear, and doubt. Now, is that paradigm in all of us? Surely. But when you replace that paradigm with faith, which is just a belief, constant spaced repetition, I believe that when I live in alignment with my thoughts on a conscious level, my feelings on a subconscious level, and my behavior on a physical level, it will happen. That is the law of cause and effect. That is the permanent transmutation of energy out of the ether, out of spiritual plane, into my intellect, through and to and through me into physical form. 97% of the population operates on that physical plane. And that is why life is so hard for so many people, because they unwittingly get involved in what they have unconsciously created to date, and they let those circumstances drive their thoughts, feelings, and behavior because they don't know this information. Is this too much theory for you guys, or is this
No, this is
helpful?
perfect. This is
Okay, good.
perfect.
Okay,
It's
good.
great. No, it's good.
Okay, good. So that's the big thing in life, right? People say to me, or they sell it, oh, you can now start to manifest. You are manifesting. This is the human condition at its best, co-creation. We just don't know how to work the mechanism. We don't know how to understand who we truly are on a spiritual level. We don't understand that we're here to do the highest and best work that could possibly be done. And why is that? Because of the paradigms. So I want you to I invite you to embrace this new concept of success. Not, oh, I failed at that. Oh, it's just a progressive worthy, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. If you're moving to your goal, if you're constantly thinking about it, if you're getting emotionally involved in it, if you're acting on behalf of that goal, manifesting into reality on the faith, because you won't have everything you need if it's a proper C-type goal, but like it's dark here tonight, it will happen because any thought you hold in the mind will materialize into form, whether it's wanted or unwanted. You can't stop that train. You can't stop that train. Okay. So we have a new model of success here.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it beautiful? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know we aren't going to just go to bed tonight and say, okay, I got it. I'm not expecting that. If you do, good. You can start coaching me. But your goal, I believe, comes from part of your purpose, right? We talked about purpose, vision, and goals. I believe that when you're acting in alignment with your purpose and your vision of your life is in harmony with that, and then your goal is a bite out of your purpose, or excuse me, out of your purpose and your vision, that is when you're in alignment. That's when you're in love with it. Like, I know Laura's purpose is to help heal people. I know, we all have our purpose, our vision, and our goals. So make sure that it's not somebody else's vision. It's not somebody else's purpose that you're living. Okay. And get emotionally involved in it on a daily basis. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But without a goal, back to your point, Kathy, there's so much stuff coming at us.
Really.
We are just like a pinball in a pinball machine. Without a goal, people did you ever see that movie that Tom Hanks was in? I forget what the name, it was something in the volcano. And like he just, went through life every single day in kind of this black and white deal until he got a diagnosis. And then he said, screw the cubicle, I'm going to go do things. And he started living his life in Technicolor. We only get one bite at the apple so far as we know. We have to make these goals to engender growth, to give us something in the future. And it's not that we are embodying the goal today, but like it's an organizing principle. When I graduated from Wellesley College, I went back to school as an adult. When I married my former husband, because I had dropped out to start a business, dropped out of college when I was 20. I graduated, did really well. And then the day after I graduated, I was so freaked out. Dan's like, why don't you go to that nice spa in downtown Wellesley and get a facial? I'm like, I don't need a facial. I need an organizing principle. And I marched myself right over to Babson College and looked at their executive MBA program because I needed an organizing principle. What I didn't understand, and part of that was I just didn't think I was smart enough. This was after somebody gave me, Trevor had given me a teaching fellowship at Harvard. I graduated, magna cum laude at Wellesley. Whatever. point was I
It
didn't think I
wasn't
was smart
enough.
enough. It wasn't enough. I didn't think I was that smart. So, but the point was, being in school gave me an organizing principle. I had a goal. I had a goal to do really, really well because I didn't leave my previous college experience really at the top of my class because I wasn't interested in it. But the point was, you know, I loved that structure, and we have to build the structure in for us, this organizing principle, and being completely obsessed in a healthy way with our goals is that organizing principle. It brings us growth, it brings us passion, it brings good things to the world. That's why it's important. Okay. So do not waste your energy. Be very conscious of what you're thinking about, what you're getting emotionally involved in, what you're reacting to, right? Anything you're getting negatively involved in, judging other people, judging yourself, judging the political scene, you know, whatever it is, you're giving your energy at every moment to something.
Mhm.
And it sets up an attraction pattern. So more on that later. So guard your thoughts, guard your feelings, guard it like gold, because it is. It's your wand. Your word is your wand. I think that was one of Florence Scovel Shinn's books. Okay. So to embody this, we have to change the paradigm. Bob and Earl talk about this. But here's the beautiful truth. You already know how to do almost everything that you want to do already, right? Remember the knowing, doing gap?
Mhm.
The paradigm's holding you back. It's like that governor on an engine. That's the thing that's holding you back. No big deal. Let's build an image that we get so emotionally involved in, that we get so excited about, that the cells that are sloughing off our body, the billions of cells that slough off our body, carry an image. One of my friends said this at one of Bob's retreats, and it was so good. She said, I got so emotionally involved in this image of taking my daughters, that was her C-type goal for that, you know, that exercise, to ski in Colorado, that I saw these little cells coming off my body, each one having that fully baked image of myself and my daughters skiing down the hill. So your body is literally shedding vibrational energy. That's the Carillion photography. So anything you're emotionally involved in is going to send out that vibration. Okay. So open, and I know we're going a little bit long, but open up your program book to page 12. And that's where you take, you know, the fantasy and you say, am I willing and am I able? I want to make sure that you guys are making a committed decision to step out and act on your C-type goals. One of my goals is health and fitness, to release weight, to be able to ski, to do all those things. I think I've shared that with you. I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm a healthy, happy, strong, 145 pounds, fit, well, you know, and we have to boil these down into one sentence, by the way, one or two. But what was I willing to do about it? Jack, I wasn't doing anything about it. I mean, sort of, kind of. Yeah, page 12. Oh, sorry, page 12.
Is it 12 or 20?
12. Oh, sorry, it's 13. Sorry, 13. So I got really, you know, like real with myself. And I'm like, hey, Margaret, put your money where your mouth is. So I engaged this trainer. It is not inexpensive. It's a car payment plus. It's like a car and a half. But you know what? It's accountability, it's nutrition, it's workouts. He knows how to do functional medicine. He's helping me rebuild my knee, all of those things. And then I realized I didn't have time in my schedule to do what he was telling me to do. That was last week's lesson, right? So, what am I willing to do? So, he and I talked about it today. I've got a much better sleep habit set up that I'm going to have to change my sleep paradigm. And I'm going to get up earlier and I'm going to get it done before anything else happens in my day. Period. End of story. So that's what I'm willing to do. But our lives are all full. If you want a better relationship and you can't make the one you want healthier, you're going to have to make a decision, because you're going to have to make space in your life for the things you want. If you have anything, Bob used to tell the curtain story. If you hate the curtains, pull them down. live with bare windows. It will motivate you to get new curtains, clothing, people, places, things. Get the picture here? So you have to, it's not just, we can't just keep walking around with this on a conceptual level. That's what we learned in the terror barrier. We have to get real with it. Now, that is going to cause you to have some paradigm issue, right? Because the existing paradigm is going to say, hey, wait a minute. You don't want to spend $700 a month on a trainer for 6 months. What if you don't do it? You haven't done it in the past. What if he's not really the guy? What if he doesn't, what if? I'm not saying don't vet things, but I'm saying once you do and your gut's saying yes and your paradigm saying no, that's when you have to fall back on the vision. Am I willing to do this? Right? So we have to have a clear image of what we want, number one, and then we have to have the will to do it. That's what Werner von Braun said to Kennedy when he said, what will it take to put a man on the moon? He didn't say $8 million, 40,000 pounds of steel, rockets, astronauts. He said the will to do it for a reason. The how filled in, that grid filled in. But the first thing was the decision, this we shall do, right? So you have to get, as my grandfather used to say, or we used to say about these conversations with my grandfather, you have to have a little come to Jesus moment with yourself, like how willing am I to do this? And if it's something you really want, know that you can have it, but you're going to have to get involved with building a new paradigm and practicing it over and over again. When the old paradigm says don't do it, you're going to have to say, thank you, sit down in the corner, the adults are talking. This I shall do. It was not easy for Bob to leave the best job he'd ever had at $4,000 a year with an 8th grade education. People surely thought he was straight out of his mind. And the fire chief even said, Bob, I can't take you back if this floor cleaning business doesn't work out. It's so easy to look in hindsight and say, duh, no brainer. Yeah, this was a no brainer. No, it never is obvious until you've already done it. If it was, everybody would be doing it. So think about that. You're going to have to integrate this. You're going to have to say, do I really want what I say I want? And the answer is yes, of course. It wouldn't have come to you if you didn't want it. If your inner being wasn't calling for it, it would not have showed up on your radar. But then you have to be willing to have the faith to step out and do the inspired actions. Okay. And that will be made easier the more you get emotionally involved with a goal achieved. Neville says feeling is the secret. 100% true. I see people like Phil. He is obsessed. He never talks about how it's not going to happen, ever. Does he not think that once in a while? Of course he does. He's a mere mortal, like we all are. But there is a reason that he bottom lines it every time I talk to him. Peggy, what do you want? We don't spend a lot of time talking about anything else. Well, Phil, I'm a little, my paradigm, we have very short conversations. What do you want? Don't think about, well, I don't know. Don't think about that. What do you want? Okay. So we have to only focus on what we want, and then we have to be willing to step out in faith in those inspired actions. So we talked about the Carillion photography, which I think is so amazing. And there were a couple of other things in the program that I wanted to talk to you about just really quickly. On page 14, I love this. And the third paragraph down. All of a sudden, I realized that in the hundreds of lives I had studied and the countless books I'd read, a plain and simple fact that had been staring me in the face all along. And it is simply that we become what we think about. And I'll add all day long. I promise you on my children's lives that if you become, in a healthy way, obsessed, a magnificent obsession with your goal, it will be so much easier You will download inspired ideas. You will get thoughts, call so-and-so and connect with them. Things will happen. I was having an idea today. Dan and I were reevaluating our goals, certain goals that we had. And I was like, something doesn't feel right about this approach I'm taking. And I just sat with it. Like I was okay with that. Like I just let it in. It was like spirit was telling me, my spirit, the spirit, it's like a message was being served up. And I got onto a business development call with a business development program I'm in. And I kid you not, she was literally talking about something, another way of approaching marketing, different ideas, different ways of building relationships. And it just went like the penny dropped, as Joni often says, And it was like, at one point I sat there and I thought, did my spirit know that like, in the end, it doesn't really matter. But the point was, everything synced up so beautifully. It was almost like you order a vegan cheeseburger and it shows up like that easy.
Yeah.
And the reason it doesn't work like that for us, as well as it can and as well as it will, and as well as I'm, by God, sitting here, is gonna for you guys, is because of our disbelief in our paradigms, the resistance in the paradigms on some level. But it can be exactly that easy. It's not because the things aren't here. It's not because the universe hasn't already lined it up, or God. It's not because we can't do it. None of that is true. It's because of the programming, pure and simple. No big deal. We have the technology to change that.
Mm-hmm.
So, he also talks about it here, by thinking every morning, every night. Kathy, you asked about this, as many times during the day as possible, during the day as we can, about the single goal we've established for ourselves, we actually begin moving toward it and bringing it towards us. That is so true. And we need to get good at looking for the signs and being grateful for every sign. Something unwanted showed up, you can take that to the bank. It's like, okay, there's an adjustment that needs to be made in there. So this goal is so important. There were a couple more notes I wanted to get over in here, and then we'll talk about this tomorrow. And what I'd really love to hear from you all tomorrow is, where are you with your goal? Do you need help formulating it? Do you think it's big enough? Do you think it's too big? Should we chunk it down? I believe there's power in having a big goal, but then you can also chunk it down to a place that there's not as much goal resistance. We talked about that. The disbelief isn't so big that it's easier to build the belief muscle, that kind of thing. We can talk about that tomorrow. But if you would go to page 16.
Mm-hmm.
This one is worth printing and hanging it somewhere prominent in your home, above your desk. The image. Are you all seeing the image here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the above graphic illustrates exactly what happens in an orderly universe. Thomas George, and I believe it was also Neville, said, order is heaven's first law. When you set up a C-type goal, what you're doing is taking all the chaotic thoughts, all the disjointed things, and you're giving it an image, and you're literally painting a picture vibrationally. Right? Van Gogh said, I dream my painting and then I paint my dream, not the other way around. That is the gene. We still marvel at the spirit in those paintings. He dreams the painting and then he gets about the how, from the inspiration of the vision of the dream. That's how it works best.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it the other way. It's exhausting. It's subpar by magnitude of infinity because you've cut out all the spirit of the thing, right? Thomas Trord also wrote a paper called Entering into the Spirit of It. And that's in that video that Bob did. Like, we have to enter into the spirit of it. We have to vivify it, and it vivifies us. It gives us life. And likewise, vice versa. So whatever you build an image of and you get emotionally involved in, this is why fear, the things we fear, Job said, that which I have feared has come upon me. The things you fear will come to you in a heartbeat because fear is such a strong emotion. That'll pull those suckers in like no other, right? So we have to be mindful of where our thoughts are, not in a hypervigilant, crazy, fearful way, just like noticing. Oh, and it's typically repetitive. I have fear around this. I have fear around relationships. I have worry and doubt around money. I have a paradigm around this. Extricate yourself emotionally from it and just see it as an outsider would. Because you didn't build yourself, you didn't program yourself. But now you have an opportunity to change it. Okay. So it doesn't matter how you got to be the way you did, how ugly your paradigms are, whatever you did in the past. I could care less. The only point is here and now. What do you want? And what are you going to do about it? And you're going to have to program yourself to be, do, and have what that goal achieved person would be, do, and have. So you have to build an image of yourself, dressed like her, walking like her, talking like her, associating with people like her, in the absence of any of that existing to date. Okay. So whatever's impressed must be expressed through your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind expresses itself through polar opposite, the physical body in motion, meaning the mind is in every cell of the body. And so whatever is in your mind, you're going to act out in accordance with that. This emotion, right? So we talk about feeling. How am I feeling? This emotion alters the vibration of the body and the mind, right? The mind body. And vibration on a conscious level is referred to as feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you say to me, that's how I'm feeling, then you know what you're emotionally involved in. Every action sets up an equal and opposite reaction. Then when you take into consideration that there is an attractive force, aka the law of attraction, in the universe, and that the only thing you can attract to you is energy that vibrates in harmony with you. If you are in a negative vibration, you definitely will not attract positive people or situations into your life. They will, in fact, be repelled. However, if you are in a positive vibration, then everything of a like nature moves into your direction. As we proceed through the various lessons in this program, we will elaborate on this magnificent orderly process that is referred to as life. And we're going to stop there because I want to respect your time. But that first half right there and those last pages, that is the law of attraction explained. That was the secret that was left out of the secret, the law of vibration. Everything's moving to and through you into form based on your thoughts, and then what you become emotionally involved in based on your thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this does. It's great. I love theory. I love
theory. Right. So you have a fantasy. So tomorrow we're going to talk about using your imagination in the direction of the good you desire, because it is my intuition and my felt sense that we don't give ourselves time and space to really let our imagination run wild and to get involved in fantasy. I think we are completely unaware, and I will remind me to restate this for Kathy and Laura. Whatever your C-type goal is, that's really great. And you should have it, and you should feel good about it, and you should want it. But I am thoroughly convinced that we are completely unaware of to what degree our paradigms limit our imaginations. It's this invisible operating force in the background that you can't really see. You can feel it. But when you sit down to be blue sky, wild ass, crazy, outrageous, this is what I would love, there is still limitation placed on it by your subconscious programming. And I think that just is, but to the extent that we can be aware of it, then we can start to have more power and control over it. You know, like a meta affirmation. I'm an infinite being. I'm attached to the source of all that is. Anything that I can think and dream, I can do. That kind of orientation to life is what sets us free and puts us on a path of living the way we're meant to live. So tomorrow we're going to talk about your C-type goals. Any questions about it? You don't need to hear me talk. You have this material. I hope you're studying it like a scientist. But to me, this lesson, you can't study it enough, because what we're doing in this program and why I find it so valuable is we're putting it into action. We're taking what we learned in the previous programs and we're really drilling down into it and making it happen. Right? We're not in kindergarten anymore. Not that we were, but do you know what I'm saying? This is
Right, yeah.
this is we're in the deep now. We're in the deep of this now, in the bigness of it. And we're not in the shallows anymore.
Right,
And
I
while we're
agree.
here, right? While we're here
Yeah.
together, I really invite you to put your hands in the clay of it. And if it breaks, we'll build a new one. You know, like make it happen, people. So yeah. So keep going. Is that faith?
Yeah, I don't know what's got her upset.
You tend
I
to
know what,
her.
I know,
The
I know
wind
what
blew.
got her, I know what got her upset, because Peggy said earlier in the lesson that animals don't live on a spiritual, physical, and intellectual plane. And
No,
I
I didn't.
think your dog heard that and said, was going like,
She's like,
hang on.
yeah,
No,
she's like, hey, I want to say something about that. That's what she's saying.
yeah, actually, if I said that, I'll correct you. I'll correct myself. But to correct the record, I personally think animals live on a spiritual plane. I don't think they've developed the intellectual faculties and the opposable thumbs. Like,
Probably they don't need to.
pardon me?
Probably because they don't need to.
Right. I mean,
They
you know
have
what?
our thumbs.
They're already right. They're already in bliss. They're already connected to source.
Yeah.
We have the higher intellectual factors. So therefore, it's incumbent on us to build the life we want. They live by pure instinct. We have the ability, the acorn doesn't become a Japanese maple. The acorn becomes a mighty oak because of its pre-programmed plan. We get the pleasure of programming ourselves. The unfortunate part is our parents didn't know that, so they programmed us the way they were programmed. And if that's great and it's working for you, carry on. If it's not, that's why you're here. And you don't know how to even if you were programmed up with the best of the best, take this to heart. You're still going to hit an outer limit if you don't know how to keep growing. Because most of what you've accomplished is probably been through unconscious competence.
Mm.
Think about
Yeah.
that. You see it all the time. High achievers
It's so
who
true.
unconsciously go up the ranks and up the ranks and up the ranks, and then they hit the wall.
Yeah.
And
And
if you
they
ask
don't-
them who they are, they couldn't answer you.
No.
And yeah,
And
that
there's
makes sense.
yeah. And there's a lot of psychology that goes into why am I stuck and why is this? Because you don't know how to operate your being. You didn't get the owner's manual. No big deal. We have one now. Let's use it. That's the deal. That's why I love teaching this to high performers, and I want to find more of them, because they'll get up to that outer limit, and unless they just have this baked into their paradigm of constant growth, constant expansion, and they know how to manage it, they'll hit the wall and they won't know how to break through. Oops, hold on a second. Everything's shutting down on me. Hold on. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. They'll hit the wall and you will too. And that's why studying this consistently with consistency is so important. Phil warned me, told me, I've learned it. Joni said it. We've all experienced it. You fall off this train, that paradigm is waiting right there for you.
Oh, yes.
And it's happy to take over because it's easy. It's your comfort zone. It's It'll talk you out of just about anything. And I think there's an evolutionary reason for that too, but we've evolved past that. Right?
Well, I'm
Listen.
trying to evolve past that.
Well, we are.
So, yeah.
We are. And just by virtue of you being here, Lisa and Joni, that is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And tomorrow we're going to talk more about that. But listen, the way most people get into this work is because they want more of these, whatever this is for you. Money, relationship, homes, whatever. In the end, I'm more convinced than ever, and this is a new awareness on my part, what you really want is the freedom to know exactly how life works, to know exactly how your mind works, to know how to be as happy as you could possibly be, to know how to leave the world a better place, to have everything you want, and to just live in that space of constant co-creation. It's harder to sell that to people. Hey, don't you want to live in a state of constant co-creation? Yeah, hand me the Chardonnay,
Or
but
the
like, or the what?
Or the spliff. That's what my daughter used to say to me. Yeah, Joan, have another spliff.
Yeah. I mean, whatever, however you get there. But here's the thing. We now know how to get there, but it takes practice because it's so anathema to what we've been taught. And that's no big deal. So let's enjoy the ride. Let's have fun with it. And, let's have the joy of learning how to do this really well. And then the checks show up in the mail, Lisa. The
Yeah.
person shows up, the bees show up, everything you need shows up. And it's like, you know what? It's like I just spent the last 2 days skiing with my friends that visited us here in Michigan. We had a bang on snowstorm Sunday, which made the drive exciting. But once we got here, it was like like one of the best top 10 days I've ever had skiing, and I've skied a lot. And then
That's amazing.
yesterday was sunny and even better because they had groomed it all up. And I just thought, that feeling of just floating and carving and skiing and being in flow, that's how life is meant to be lived.
The ultimate freedom.
Exactly. No limits.
In nature.
Beautiful. So I'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 Mountain, and we'll talk more about this. But I hope this is hitting. I'm shifting a little bit from have your goal card. It's still important. We'll get to that. But it's more about the spirit of what we're doing here because you have access to the material, and I'm expecting that you're studying it on a daily basis and thinking. But the context of this is very different in my mind of how it's usually taught in the world. Okay.
You're in flow.
You guys are in flow. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Right.
Love
Thank
you
you.
guys. Bye. Good
Bye.
night.